Okay, and at that we should be streaming. Streaming, I should mention, is not my forte, so don't expect too much here. But so today we're going to be watching the third integrated flight test of the Starship. Basically, its third attempt at getting into space and orbit. And yeah, it's not so much me who's Elon's take on the very first launch was, success is not what should be expected. That would be insane. We're up to the third test now, and if you actually take a look at their launch website, they seem to be scaling back expectations. And, not quite hyping it too much. There comes a point when it's like full self-driving that, when you're promising it's going to be ready this year and you actually have to do the demo and the demo tries to kill people, not going to impress so many people. So like that, there is a real test of Starship when people can actually see whether it works or doesn't work. So we're going to take a look at what it says on the SpaceX website, where we can and will be watching the flight test. There's a very good chance it gets scrubbed. I give it coin flipping chances that the flight gets before anything interesting happens. But you don't have to read that far in between the lines, between what they've got on the website, to read where they think this is going. So it's scheduled for today, about now. They're running a bit late, but whatever. It's right. A live webcast will begin about 30 minutes before liftoff. I think we're almost an hour before at the moment, which gives us plenty of time to cover why, even the best case scenario here is probably still what you would count as a failure, in that they've already sort of spaffed the best part of this isn't Musk's money he's burning here, by the way. This is government money. He's blowing billions of dollars of government money to give you excitement guaranteed. I think there might be better ways to spend $3 billion of taxpayer money. But right, so they're gonna have their webcast, blah blah blah. Can be delayed. Stay tuned on X account for updates. Yeah, we'll come to what most people think about X as a streaming service shortly. Starship's second flight test achieved a number of milestones. I think that's pushing it a bit. Each of these flight tests continues to be just that, a test. Now, bear in mind that now, in the first quarter of 2024, this thing wasn't meant to be just going through another test. It was meant to be landing on the moon. Their first flight test should have been 2 years ago. That would have made it to orbit. They would have done their long duration space flight tests. They would have done their orbital refueling tests. And they would actually right now be landing one of these things on the moon. Just to give you some idea of how behind schedule they are. And the thing is, they've already blown the cash. They've had, out of the $3 or so billion that they were awarded for this, they've had somewhat over $2 billion. And they've not even achieved the very first goal, which is actually getting a system that can get to orbit. So, at some point, reality is going to hit the fan. The Starbase thing looks very impressive, but if you give anyone $3 billion of government money and say go build a rocket, it's impossible to not have something that looks impressive. In that you either give it to some absolute nobody, and that nobody says, well, what am I supposed to do with $3 billion? In which case you don't actually spend the money, you get the money back. In this case, it's like, well, you do what any company does is, well, we're going to have to hire a load of rocket engineers to do this and a load of engineers to build it, that sort of thing. That's fine. And that's essentially what SpaceX has done here. But they've blown the money. and they've not really even achieved the very first goal on the timeline. So how can you build? How does the plan? How does the development of this continue when they've essentially blown all of the money? This is kind of tricky. Anyway, so they say each of these test flights continues to be just that, a test. So they were meant to be landing on the moon, and they're still doing a test to try and get the rocket off the ground, or at least into low Earth orbit, which, again, they're not even going to be doing that today, right? They've scaled back their almost low Earth orbit thing to, it's not even going halfway around the world this time, as we'll come to. They aren't carrying a lab or on a test stand, but putting flight hardware into a flight environment to maximize learning. And yeah, you take a look at what they learned from their first $2 billion rockets blowing up, and it's pretty slim pickings. Anyway, third flight test aims to build on what we learned from previous flights while attempting numerous ambitious objectives, including successful ascent burn on both stages. Okay, that's getting the rocket. That's just launching the rocket, opening and closing the Starship payload doors, which this is their second thing that they're trying to achieve, and it is the most trivial thing to do. Right, when you actually take a look at what when they say payload doors, you might think of something sophisticated. It's not. It's a little letterbox thing that just sort of slides open and closed. Now, yeah, that's the entire of the payload bay doors. This is their second objective for their tests. Now, when they launch this thing, it's going to have to be pressurized on the inside. So they'll have to depressurize the Starship at some point, or at least there will be a bay behind this that they will have to depressurize to open this. I suppose they could just open it and the gas will escape. It doesn't really matter once you're in space, because taking the pressure off, if you have a vacuum on the inside of this thing when it's on the ground, the whole thing will just crumple. It's got no strength like that. It's a big floppy tube. But when you're blowing pressure into it, it's quite rigid. So when you're in space and it's vacuum outside and you've got pressure inside, you just sort of open a valve or something, and all the pressure goes out, and it's a big metal tube into a gravity. Then you just open the door. It is the most trivial thing you can do. More importantly, might be that you can't bring this thing back from space. It needs to be pressurized. Oh, I don't know this for certain, but I'll bet dollars to donuts that it's got to be pressurized to maintain its structural integrity. In other words, when it comes back to Earth, if it comes back and it's not pressurized, the whole thing will just sort of crumple under its own weight as it gets to the sort of re-entry interface. So you need to sort of have a pressurized tube to do that. So you'll have at least to close this up and repressurize it. But I don't think they're even going to get that far, because if you continue reading on what they've got, okay, the third thing is a propellant transfer demo during the upper stage coast phase. This is right. So in low Earth orbit, to go around the Earth takes about 90 minutes. They're doing about half of that. It's going to take the whole flight is going to be about an hour long. And okay, so you've got about 10 minutes to actually burn up to speed. You've got opening the payload bay doors. This is the most trivial thing that you can possibly. Why on earth are you even listing this on your objectives? The propellant transfer is, I think, basically just to keep NASA happy. That in terms of this getting people to the moon, it's achieved nothing, right? But one of the next things that they will have to do is to be able to transfer propellant in space, because Starship's performance is terrible at anything other than low Earth orbit. I guarantee you that when someone actually writes the history on all of this, Elon Musk will turn up at a design meeting and say, I want to launch the most powerful rocket ever. And, people look around and, Yeah, well, what for? I want to launch lots of stuff to orbit, and the thing is, there isn't a large market to launch lots of stuff to low Earth orbit. To take a look at the launch market for the last 30 years or something, it's been more or less static. And the reason it's more or less static is launch costs are a fraction of the actual cost of the satellite. The satellites are almost always more expensive than the launch costs. And so, yeah, launch costs aren't making the launch costs cheap isn't going to make your satellites cheaper. Um, and yeah, the only thing that has even shifted this balance slightly is Starlink. And Starlink, uh, they're basically making their own business. It's the only thing that Starship can possibly be useful for is launching Starlink satellites, because its performance for anything other than low Earth orbit is terrible. For geostationary orbit, you've got to refuel it a load of times. For getting to the moon, it's also just as much of a nightmare. Which is an irony. You know, the Saturn V it may have been a smaller rocket, but it could get 20 odd tons to the moon's surface. Starship, as it stands, can't get out of low Earth orbit. It needs lots of refueling, which we'll come to in a second. They're going to do the first ever relight of a Raptor engine in space. That's actually going to be interesting, right? It's not actually terribly useful, but hey, we can try. So another one of the major architectural problems with taking Starship to the moon is you've got to relight these Raptor engines in space multiple times, and that's turbo pumps in space or in deep space is something that's basically never been done, because turbo pumps are unreliable, and you don't want your people dying in space. So virtually all of the deep space stuff that NASA has previously done is pressure-fed engines. And the reason they're pressure-fed is all you have to do is open two valves, and if those valves open successfully, it works. There aren't like a gazillion moving parts that have to work perfectly, otherwise the whole thing fails. So they're going to... There is a good chance that it gets scrubbed. There's a good chance that there is a catastrophic failure somewhere along the lines. There is the fact that they've shifted where they want to land this thing to the Indian Ocean, for me, is a big tell. Right, so this comes to the new trajectory of the Starship is splashdown in the Indian Ocean. The new flight plan enables us to attempt new techniques like in-space burning while maximizing public safety, which basically means they think it's going to blow up and they don't want 200 tons of Starship raining down on a populated area. This is what you would call bad optics. And if you take a look, in fact, let's come to Google Earth, shall we? Here is Earth. This is where we all live. America is over here somewhere. Where they're launching the Starship from is somewhere around here. And of course, these things basically on a big, great circle. So it's got to thread the needle getting through here, so you don't fly over populated areas. And I think you're probably going to skim some of this area. And then you're going to... The original flight plan was, for the IFT 1 and 2, was you were going to fly over this populated area, and then you're going to deorbit and land somewhere around Hawaii, which gets you 3/4 of an orbit, that sort of thing. Now they're planning to ditch somewhere around here, it doesn't scream confidence that this thing is going to work. There are an awful lot of things that can go wrong here. Uh, yeah, and I wonder where we're at on the ditch Google Earth for a sec. Do we have? No, I think. Yeah, okay. It's still not started their 30-minute countdown. Have they scrubbed it yet? No, it doesn't look like it. Otherwise the chat would be getting excited. But they did release a video for this, and so let's take a look at their video for their third integrated flight test. And so yeah, you'll be in the audio as well. So, okay, it's a big tube with lots of cryogenic liquid in. Mismatched engines, okay, that's good. The deluge system was interesting. I got to give it to them. That was there is part of it that it's more stuff than go wrong. You know, what if your deluge system fails? Well, it's going to destroy your rocket. You know, if you actually sort of get the flame cutting through bits of this. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they got it to work, but still not entirely solved. And these are all supposedly their flight tests, which is like getting rockets to hover is not anywhere near as sophisticated as you might think. You know those little radio-controlled drones? They have little gyros in them that keep them stabilized, and they are bloody fantastic. And yeah, so all you need is a feedback between that, the gyros in this thing, and the rocket engine at the bottom, and that's basically it. You need to be able to control the thrust on your rocket engine and have gyros and a gimbal. They're not, and it's a similar deal with, you know, people are so impressed that they keep on landing rockets in roughly the right place. Well, US military devised a method of delivering things to almost exactly the right place on Earth, plus or minus a meter or two, with something called GPS. And it's basically exactly the same thing. You know, okay, you've got a rocket engine that's got to throttle down and give you a soft landing. But, you know, in terms of the technology, the tricky bit there is relighting the engines, controlling the thrust, that sort of thing. The rest of it is relatively simple stuff. Yeah, it is one of the favorite memes that I see cropping up on well, whatever Twitter is, you know, he did this, so self-driving will be easy. And it's like, no. Yeah, people are enjoying my what the videos I've been watching. Yes, I watch. The bizarre thing is, I watch quite a lot of StarCraft, even though I've never actually played the game. Don't ask me why. I just kind of enjoy it. Anyway, right, we're coming back to the promo video. Yeah, they got some flying fuel tanks. Gateway to Mars. This is not a gateway to Mars. This will never be a gateway to Mars. I can give you a gazillion reasons why. In fact, let's go through one of the reasons why we're not going to Mars. Or, well, yeah, well, even why going to the moon is probably not so smart. So let's come to drawing and see if we can actually draw something. There we go. Excellent. Right. So here we are on Earth at 1G. That's the gravity that we currently live in. And we can live in this gravity environment quite happily indefinitely. You go over to 0G, which is basically microgravity. That's what you get in space. And your bones rot away because they're not being stressed and all that sort of thing. And the blood pools in your chest and... you know, so beyond some early endurance things where they had some astronauts or cosmonauts in space for about a year, now the general reckoning is 6 months is your limit for being on the International Space Station. So the moon is about 0.1. It's a sixth basically. And so, okay, you're just doing linear extrapolation. You can maybe last a year on the moon. This is the most likely. It might not be linear, but whatever. Let's just assume it's linear in the first case. Someone says 6 minutes? Seriously? Okay. Okay, well, whatever. We might have to shift over in a second. But Mars is about half of that. So, you do your linear extrapolation, and actually it can't be entirely linear because you can live indefinitely in this, but it's likely that on Mars your bones will rot away, and that's what tends to happen is the calcium leaches out of your bones, you get kidney stones, which if you're on a space mission, that's going to be fatal, or can be fatal. Right, anyway, so coming back to the video. Too many screens and too many mouses. There we go. Boom. Yeah, it's not a great way to Mars. No. A little bit of angle grinding, and this is where the flight the spiel about rapid iteration and development and all that sort of thing. You can't rapidly iterate the design if you've already built a load of them, right? Rapid iteration means that basically you only build the next one after you worked out what happened to the last one. Not that it greatly matters, as most of these things are just giant empty flying tubes anyway. That's most of what a rocket is a giant flying fuel tank. And of course you've got to put some promo in there for your Cybertruck, which why? I should mention this is a $3 billion of taxpayer money, and that as well. You take a look at it. Oh Jesus! I didn't even see this one. Right? You take a look. The mismatched engines. Right? This was their first flight test. What do you learn about launching a rocket that you expect to blow up? That you should maybe design one that you don't expect to blow up. And if you take a look at it, okay, well, look at this beautiful workmanship on the tiles. Well, this is what it's going to keep you. Oh, it's a bit loud on the music. Okay, I'll turn that down. But just look at the mix on the tiles. It's like, yeah, that's what's going to keep you safe during re-entry, boys. All right, so there we go. I've turned the music down. And oh yeah, okay. Now let's come back to it going off the launch pad drunk on the first flight test. Right? Yeah, that 3-degree lean there. That's not intentional. They had so many engines fail on launch that it came off the launch pad drunk. Yeah, boys, you could be about 30 seconds away from dying right now. And all the engines gone out, and the thing's blowing up, and idiots cheering as they're blowing several $1 billion of government money. In fact, this guy here, I think, might become my new poster child for stupid idiot cheers at... yeah, look, we blew $1 billion of government money. Yeah, it was so exciting. And also, it's like, hang on. Right? There's a general thing that yeah, well, where's my chewing idiots at? Here we go. Oh, that was a nice shot, the enhanced one. Okay. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. What do you notice here? It's like, did they hire no one over 20 to make this thing. Right? You've got $3 billion of government money to blow. And these are the engineers that you've got to blow it. Right? Yeah. SpaceX engineers. They're anyway. Yeah, we did it. We blew up the rocket. So that was actually an impressive one. They got all 30 to burn last time. I will admit that, I was overly skeptical there, mostly based on that Elon said that, they had massive reliability problems with the Raptor. Yeah, and you got to go with what information you got. I was expecting, having had the first one have like 30% of its engines fail. I was impressed that they managed to get them all burning for the second one. But again, this is necessary. This is every other rocket doesn't celebrate the fact that their engines light up and it makes it to orbit. SpaceX is the only people who do this. And yeah, so it's clear that SpaceX actually has some better video than the stuff they stream, and or someone else gave them the video footage, because the video footage of this thing blowing up, that's compared to the black and white one that they streamed last time, that's a much better feed. Now, it should be stressed that they're claiming that they had some oxygen filter block here, and that's very difficult to see how that can happen. There is part of me that doesn't greatly believe a lot of what SpaceX or Elon Musk says, in that he tends to retcon and do make-believe improv when he's talking about Starship. So on one of his previous sort of breakdowns, he was saying that this is going to be one of the first things ready for Artemis, for taking people back to the moon, when Artemis had already flown around the moon and his first Starship had just blown up. So, right. So are we done on time? Half an hour. So this should... Do we have a launch feed yet? Let's click watch. No, we don't. Okay. So we're bringing us on to what exactly is... This was put up on the SpaceX channel. And let's have a little laugh at the comments, shall we? Please stream it on YouTube. The quality is so much better. Please come back to YouTube. We need you. I've not seen a single blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Please stream it on YouTube. Please stream it on YouTube. Come back to YouTube. Blah, blah, blah. Basically, they're saying that Twitter sucks. And yeah, very much it does. Actually, whilst we're here, and seeing as it is in this is in the, watch it next video. Let's watch the Optimus next generation robot. This was released 3 months ago, 4.5 million hits. Because it's all fake. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, lots of panning shots. And okay, they've got an LED on it, and they've got an extra LED on it. And this is just in their latest video where they were fixing it, faking the video. It was basically some guy with, it's not quite motion capture, but it's the same sort of idea. There's haptic gloves, that sort of thing. And that's the case because it's either completely CG. The robot doesn't need to look around. All of the robots, the humanoid robots that do things, they don't actually have moving heads because you don't need it. If you want 360-degree vision, you just put cameras all around the head. which is there's some robotics company doing something for Google. That's exactly what they've got. So the mere fact that the robot's moving its head means they've either got a terrible design or it's a guy with haptic gloves doing this. Yeah, you do not need an actuated neck on a robot. And yeah, are you ready for their amazing 30% walking speed boost? This is what, 2, 3, 4 years in, and they're boasting that it can walk slightly quicker, like an old man trying to who shat his pants. Yeah. Wow. It's got and it can walk in a straight line on a flat, unobstructed surface. And yeah, this is almost certainly doing the haptic gloves thing again. It's basically you just control the robot as a automaton. You know, you get your gloves. Whatever your hands does, the robot does. Yeah, there is at this point, if it's a presentation from Tesla, the real question is, how did they fake it, and how much did they actually leave in the video that you can actually prove that they faked it? This goes back all the way. This is, yeah, God. The battery swap demo, that was all fake. The solar roof tiles, that was all fake. The full self-driving videos, that was all fake. The and then you just get into the make-believe improv, which is sort of like this thing here. Yeah. And yeah, so it's just some shitty promo video anyway. Right. Has the mission been scrubbed yet? If not, I will go into why, you know, even success will basically still count as failure here. Oh, your request is blocked. That's interesting. Maybe too many people trying to use their website. And actually, no, before we go into the rest of Artemis, just to show how little planning has actually gone into all of this, they've got their countdown, so it takes about an hour for them to fill up the giant flying silo with liquid oxygen, liquid methane. And these are things, right? Beginning to chill down the Raptors. How exactly are you going to do that in space? It's quite easy to do it on the ground. You just blow liquid nitrogen through them or something. Or, you know, you just pump liquid oxygen through them. I don't know how to do it, but, you know, irrespective, doing that in space is going to be a problem. And when they say they're going to do an in-flight Raptor refiring, not quite the same deal as having had it sat in deep space for 6 months to a year before lighting it back up again. Anyway, and then they're going to launch it, and they've not updated any of this. So it's sufficiently low energy stuff that they've not updated this for and how much of this you can see, but it says, you know, they're going to launch exactly like last time. Ship ascends, engines cut off, coast phase, Starship re-entry, water landing. They've not updated this graphic for including opening the bay doors or the in-flight burn or the oxygen or the propellant transfer test, which is going to be really trivial stuff. So they've not done any of that. And then you take a look at the actual, and this they have updated. So we're taken off at 0, and boosters back after about 7 minutes. Starship cut off 8 minutes, and then straight away they basically open the bay doors. That's it, right? And then 10 minutes later, they do the propellant transfer demo. Then they close the bay doors. So, I mean, this is the entire of the interesting stuff happens literally over 20 minutes. Then there's a 10-minute break, and then they're going to relight the engines, and then there's 10 more minutes for re-entry, and then splashdown. You see what I mean? This isn't something going to orbit and doing tests in orbit. They're because they're not going to orbit or even going halfway around the world. They have to basically get everything into an hour, which makes me suspect that this might not happen at all. A lot of this just stinks of lack of confidence. You take a look at any of the other rocket launchers, Artemis. They had the flight plan out months in advance. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they had all these. This is. If this was happening 3 years ago, maybe. But you're on your third Starship, and all you've got for so far, the best part of $3 billion of taxpayer money, is wreckage in the Gulf of Mexico. And even if this is successful, it's going to be wreckage in the Gulf of Mexico and wreckage in the Indian Ocean. That's success. That's the and yeah, the end goal for all of this. So, unless I'm just going to take a quick look, see if anything interesting is happening. Let's see if these boys have actually got anything good live. Well, apparently it's the sun's up and it doesn't look like it's scrubbed. But like I was saying, streaming is not my forte. This is not my comfort zone here. So, but let's come back to why this is a bad idea. We need this, and everything's still working. And, need that one. Super. So, with Apollo, you had your one rocket. One rocket got you to the moon and back again. And when you took off, you had a big, heavy booster. It wasn't that sophisticated, but it did the job. And that was basically the start of the design. Because if you want to get to the moon, the first thing that you need to know is mass. It's all about mass. How much mass do you want to get to the lunar surface and get back again? And that gives you the rocket design. And so they had that fairly early on. The thing is that even now, if you're asked any question about Starship, no one knows. They don't know how much. It's never even made it to low Earth orbit, let alone carried a cargo. No one knows its cargo. No one knows how much it's going to weigh when they've actually outfitted this as something that can carry people. You can't make a mission with those sorts of question marks. So right off the bat, this thing is sort of dead on arrival. These are things you need to know before you start the mission. So yeah, with the Apollo, you start with the rocket, and you know your budget of how much mass you can get to low Earth orbit, how much you can get to lunar orbit, how much you can get to the lunar surface, and so forth. And eventually they went for lunar rendezvous. But your first stage of your Saturn V doesn't even get you. I think it got you just almost up to space, The second stage of the Saturn V actually gets you into space, but not actually quite into orbit. Then you have a burn on the third stage, which actually gets you into orbit. And so this was 5 engines. This was 5 engines. This was one engine, and it was the only one that actually relit. And that so once you're in stable low Earth orbit, you relight this engine, and that takes you out on the trajectory to the moon. And then it's it's this little thing of the command module and the lunar module. And after that, it's all pressure fed engines. With Starship, the problem is that getting to the moon was all about weight. So I think this thing in total was 30 tons. I'd have to check that, but the amount that comes back to Earth, the command module, the little triangular bit, I think it was either 3 or 6 tons. I forget what. 3 tons, I think. So the takeoff mass of this thing was about 3,000 tons. And yeah, 3 tons comes back. That sounds about right. 1 part in 1,000 of the weight actually comes back to Earth. Everything else is expended. And virtually all of this is fuel. Even the bit that goes down to the moon, it's 70%, I think, of the bit that goes down to the moon is fuel. And, most of that you get to the surface. I think the bit that, for the lunar module, that going to work? Yeah, okay. For the lunar module, the bit that takes off, I think was 5 tons, of which I'm pretty sure about 3 tons was fuel and 2 tons was the actual weight of the spacecraft. And of that, it was 2 people. So 200 kilograms out of 2 tons was people. 10% of the mass of the bit that came off the moon was people, which, people are looking into my numbers. Okay. So the thing is, with Starship, it's 100 tons to low Earth orbit. And the actual vehicle weight itself, I forget, like 200 tons or something. So you've then got to actually get that into this transfer orbit, and for that you've got to fill it up again. And to fill it up takes the best part of 1,000 tons. So you need about 10 extra launches to refuel this thing in space. Question mark number 1. No one has ever sort of had fuel, giant fuel tank like that sitting in space for. Your problem is heat. There are 2 things that are hot in space near the Earth. The first is the sun. If you're in space at the distance that we are from the sun, being in space gets you roughly the heat of being in the desert if you're in the direct sunlight, and if you're on the shade side, it gets very cold. And the second thing that's hot is the Earth. The Earth actually is a giant infrared light bulb in space, and when you're in low Earth orbit, you're actually pretty bloody close to it. Boil off is a problem here. How do you keep this stuff that boils at like minus 200 liquid? So even if you can do that, you're going to need like 10 extra rocket flights to actually refuel this thing. And then even if you've done that, you've now got to relight these engines that have been sat in space for 6 months, a year, that sort of thing. And that's what's going to take you towards the moon. And then you've got to relight the engines to park in orbit. There are just so many question marks about this thing. And yeah, where are they at the moment? Well, when our third flight test, its plan is to do half an orbit. yeah, I struggle to, and this is after they've blown essentially most of the money. So, yeah, what happens next? Um, yeah, so let's see if there's any signs of life on them actually launching this thing. So they should. No. I think their launch window closes in like 20 minutes. So, um, yeah. Yeah. Suborbital flight test at this point. Um, you just compare this to the promises that in 2016, when all of this was unveiled, he said he would be landing 2 of these things on Mars in 2022. It's 2 years ago now. He said he would be landing humans on Mars now. Yeah, these are just the logistics of fueling it up and lighting, changing its velocity, lighting the engines, that sort of thing. This is before you get into the problem of how do you actually keep people alive on this thing? As far as I can tell, there's still no. They've not even thought about the interior design of this thing, which or how it's going to land, how it's going to take off. They are literally barely getting out of the gate on this thing, and they've already blown 2/3 of the money. If you were to sort of pace out where you expect that they are I mean, is it possible to make something like this work? Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that they've achieved like 5% of what they need to achieve with 70% of the money. What happens now? Do they just, yeah, does Thunderfoot think this is a bad idea? Curiously enough, yes, I do. Yeah, why don't they build a hyperloop to low Earth orbit? I will bet you dollars to donuts that at some point Musk will say that low Earth orbit is just like a hyperloop without a tube. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's also just like being in orbit. Oh, I want them to blow up the rocket already. No, no, no. It's not working. It's not working. Oh, is Common Sense Skeptic in the chat? Excellent. Yeah, so he did a. In fact, he was the guy who clued me in that they'd actually had most of the government money for this already. So yeah, go check out Common Sense Skeptics videos on the sort of space race thing. I mean, for me, I'm kind of extremely cynical about. I'm not cynical because I don't want people to achieve things. It's that Artemis. I first came across Artemis in 1982, I think, in the film Superman 2. And in the film Superman 2, in 1980, Artemis was landing on the moon. And yeah, we're just a little bit behind schedule, like 40 years behind schedule. So, when people say, we're going back to the moon for real this time, I've been hearing this for 40 years. And yeah, there comes a point when it gets difficult to get excited over things that you've heard like this. In fact, it's an interesting thing that the reason that 2001, A Space Odyssey, is set in 2001, in the plot is basically there's a mission to Jupiter to find an alien artifact. And yeah, the reckoning was that, well, 1972, we're landing on the moon, so oh, within a decade or two, we'll be at Mars, no problem. And so by the year 2000, we'll probably be on our way to Jupiter, which is why 2001 is set on the way to Jupiter. In reality, it was mostly a pissing contest with the Russians. And if you actually take a look at it, the entire time that we went to the moon was 1969 to 72. And there were give or take 10 missions. So they were launching them about 3 a year, which is not far off the cadence that, SpaceX is launching them here. But of course, they all worked. It's that there were every single one of the Saturn V rockets worked. The only one that, I mean, they had the odd engine out here and there, and they had ones that was, most of the Apollo rockets came pretty close to disaster at some point or another. We have a time, T minus 35, is that right? Okay, in which case, whilst we're enjoying the countdown, let me tell you about how almost all of the Apollo era missions ended in disaster. Apollo 1, of course, they used pure oxygen on over 1 atmosphere of pure oxygen, which is insane. Any chemist would just tell you this is crazy. But, they were in a space race. They had to cut some corners on safety. They later decided that, killing your people probably... there is a compromise between rapidly prototyping stuff and safety. And, let's do it right. Let's not kill any more people. But Apollo 10... in fact, let's come back to our... Get a new one up. No. Oh, that looks red. I'm sorry about that. Everyone feel angry for no apparent reason. Let's see if we can actually sort that out. Let's sort that out. There we go. Excellent. All right. And boom. Not that one. That one. Good. So, Apollo 10 gets all the way to the moon. And the deal was that they were actually going to go down to the moon and you do the thing where they separate the bottom from the top before they actually get to the lunar surface and then come back up again. But there was a bug in the software when they actually separated this thing whilst they're on the way down to the moon, and the top bit started spinning. And the lunar module is basically built around 2 men standing up. There were no seats in the lunar module. The whole thing was bloody tiny. Like I was saying, the mass of this thing was only like 10 times the mass of the people inside of it. When this thing starts spinning, you've got 2 problems. First of all, if you can't get to the controls, you can't control the spacecraft anymore, and a spinning spacecraft just crashes into the moon. The rocket engine, by the way, on this thing was literally sort of recessed into the floor. So if you actually take a look at, so this is more or less what the lunar lander looked like. So you've got your 2 people here, one like that, one like that. Sorry, drawing skills. The rocket engine, the engine belt is literally, you take 1 step backwards from where these guys were standing, and that's where the engine bell was. And of course, there's no airlock in this thing. When you wanted to get out of the door, you had to depressurize the whole thing to get out. Anyway, so while they're on their way down to the moon, they didn't give them enough fuel to land, by the way, because they kind of figured that these were hotshot piloty type people, and that if they gave them enough fuel to actually get down to the lunar surface and get back up again, they might try and do it. So they only gave them enough fuel to not get down to the lunar surface, and they were meant to separate and test the Ascent and rendezvous stuff. And when they did that, it started to tumble because there was a bug, and they came very close to dying at that point. Apollo 11, when they were getting back into the lunar module through the hatch here, Buzz Aldrin broke off the arm switch for the arming the Ascent engine. And of course, if you can't arm the Ascent engine, you're kind of stuck on the moon. But it turns out there were so many redundancies in this thing. There were lots of ways they could have got around it. But in the end, it was solved by a ballpoint pen, right? It had broken off the switch, but you could stick a ballpoint pen in and flip the switch using the ballpoint pen. So that's how Apollo 11 got off the surface. Apollo 12 was struck twice by lightning on takeoff, which completely reset all of their computers. Which there is a high tension moment when you are on 3,000 tons of high explosive. The touch paper has already been lit, and all of your computers suddenly start resetting. Anyway, it turns out that everything came back okay, and there was some extra switch that they had to flip. Some computer guy knew about, but yeah, the thing is that rockets, turns out, put out lots of ionized gases, which are the sort of thing that make it much easier for lightning to go to the ground. So after that, NASA decided they weren't going to launch while thunderstorms were around, which, yeah, it's a learning curve, you know. Apollo 13, of course, was a disaster, but it was over the most trivial of things on the life support. There was a fire in one of the oxygen tanks. The oxygen tanks that you need to keep yourself alive, it's roughly, you can put your hands around it. It's a fat man's worth of, is roughly the size of the sphere of the liquid oxygen tanks, and they had two of them. But one of them blew, and it damaged the other one when it did. So they basically lost all of the oxygen they needed to breathe, all of the oxygen they needed for power, and the fuel cells that burned the oxygen gave them water. And so they lost everything in like an hour. And it was an absolute desperate thing, but there was lots of redundancy in the mission, and they got everyone back. Apollo 14, I think, had loads of problems with the docking. So one of the weaknesses of the Apollo thing was the whole the moon rendezvous thing, lunar rendezvous. So it's an incredibly ballsy thing when you think about it, right? That you're sat on the moon, and there is a little spacecraft going around, I don't know, several times the speed of sound in low lunar orbit, and you've got to fire your engines at exactly the right time to go up and meet with this thing. You've got to find basically this little dot in space around the moon, and yeah, this was the technical challenge that they had to sort. Oh, it's live. Okay, ha ha. So apparently they're going to go for it. And so if we click watch, do we get a stream? We do have a stream. Watch on X. That's a little desperate and needy. Oh, and they have their salespeople from last time. Oh, you can't see what I am seeing. So I have. There we go. I have. Let's see if we can actually center that up a bit. There we go. So, 1/3 people watching, including us. And apparently there's a few thousand of us. So, yeah. And it looks like, yeah, they're half full on the fueling. Yeah. Yeah, they look like they're doing a better job these days with the tiles. Apollo 14 and the false abort signal. Oh, yeah, that's right. Apollo 14 was in orbit around the moon or something. And there was something about one of the engines kept arming, like it was about to fire. And of course, it fires, then, yeah, everyone basically dies because once you're on these things, there is only one real shot to get to the transfer orbit. One shot. Oh, let's see their animation here. For ditching in the Indian Ocean. Oh god, this is going to take its time. Yeah. Okay, it's time to take our bets as to um how long into mission. I mean, this is the crazy thing. Even success, it's all you're going to end up with is debris in the oceans on your third flight test. Yeah, and then you got thread the needle. My reckoning was it was going to clip South Africa. Yeah, and it does. Okay. Yeah, and they're deorbiting in the biggest ocean possible. Um, yeah, target they might be able to hit. Not quite sure why it's got flowers there. But... Right, almost tempted for yeah, crack open the champagne. And it looks like they've got low cloud and mist, so we're not going to get the greatest of views. It'll go into the mist very quickly, and yeah, they don't have clear skies, so we're not going. Even if it does blow up, we're not going to get nice views of it unless it blows up on the pad, and yeah, there's part of me that says even now. There is a certain flakiness that comes with the SpaceX stuff. I mean, sure, with the Falcon 9, they've got a very reliable workhorse there. That thing does. It mostly launches Starlink satellites, it must be said. But other than that, it does 30 odd missions. I forget. It's on average a mission a week, or yeah. All I know is roughly half of the things that Starlink launches are their own satellites. They basically drum up the. It's like a hospital that sort of services itself by injuring its own customers or something. I don't know. Right, so predictions time, guys. Unless it blows up on the pad, I think it's going to look fairly dull. The hot staging is the first interesting bit. Last time I just naturally assumed it was all fuel slosh. That this is a giant. Oh, they're in-flight refueling. That's yeah. So refueling in space, in principle's not terribly complicated. Your main problem is in space is that liquids tend to want to maximize their surface area, which means that it generally floats around in little droplets. So how do you actually... the droplets are held together by surface tension. So your two ways of getting it back into a liquid you can pump around are you either apply a little bit of thrust, and that little bit of thrust will give you a little bit of gravity, a little bit of acceleration, same thing as gravity, which will make all of the liquid sort of form a continuous thing. So rockets, when they want to fire in deep space, they have these things called ullage thrusters, which give you a little bit of thrust, make all the liquid pull down nice and gentle, and then you light up your engines. So that's a normal thing. And what was this one say about? Yeah. And so the two obvious ways to do your refueling is you either spin the craft and all the fuel sort of goes to the outside by centrifugal force. You don't need much to do this. All you need is enough that it doesn't float around in droplets. And once you've got that, then you can just... computer animations. Yeah. Wonderful computer animations because no one's going to be there in the middle of the Indian Ocean to see it land. Is this the only one that they ever managed to successfully land? Probably. Yeah, and this is basically the only thing that's actually useful for is launching Starlink satellites. So it wouldn't surprise me if, they basically turn around and say, well, We can kind of get it to work to launch Starlink satellites, but we can't get it to take people to the moon. So thanks for the $3 billion of taxpayer money, but we can't make the human landing system anymore. But yeah, even if they can do that, it has to become reliable. And at the moment, not so much. Yeah. When you're ambitious, can you turn your volume? Turn the volume. Okay. Yeah, I think someone's talking about something else. Okay. Any questions whilst we're waiting for this 20-minute countdown? Or should I get a beer? I should probably get a beer. $3 billion of fireworks. That's exactly. Common sense skeptic. Yeah, no, they're not going to hit anything in the Indian Ocean. That's just, it's one of the most remote areas on Earth. It's colossal and it's empty. It's not quite as bad as the Pacific, but it's almost that bad. So the mere fact that they scrubbed flying over Indonesia, yeah, this is the biggest set for expectations, I think. Yeah, more likely the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, so for the details of what they've done to this, I don't really know. It's just clear to me that this is nowhere near the system that's going to take us back to the moon, let alone in a couple of years. There's a real argument that what are you actually trying to achieve by putting men on the moon anyway? The chances are they'll have most of the same health effects that you have in low Earth orbit. And is there anything that they're going to achieve scientifically that you couldn't achieve by sending a rover? Rovers these days, back when NASA first sent men to the moon, yeah, a lot of it was just about beating the Russians. But in the end, they did end up sending geologists to the moon. And from that, we basically learned all the important stuff about the moon. Things like the Genesis rock and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I would even question the whole idea of sending men back to the moon. What are you really going to learn here? You end up spending basically 90% of your money just keeping people alive in space, which, well, okay, why not spend 10 times more on robotic rovers that would achieve far more interesting science? Okay, you don't have that sort of golden shine moment that, you can look up at the moon and say there are people there on the moon, which people did for 3 years, 50 years ago. And it's never happened again since. So yeah, colonizing the moon's not going to happen. There'll be too many health problems. It'll be too expensive. And what does it really get you? If you're, yeah, and Mars is likely a similar deal. That even if you could go there, the conditions of living on the moon and Mars will be so horrific that no sane person would choose to do it. There is the romance of putting on the spacesuit and going outside, but spacesuits are anything goes wrong with the spacesuit and you die. There's a reason why people on the International Space Station spend most of their time inside, because going outside is pretty dangerous, let alone into an environment with sharp rocks and all that sort of thing. And as far as I can tell, they don't have spacesuits anyway. Thunderfoot, do you think Elon is using SpaceX to dispose of bodies in space? Not yet. In fact, SpaceX is going to be an interesting one because they are currently the only way America has of getting people into space. So it's almost in the too big to fail category. SpaceX can't really. They've got matching engines this time. That's a hopeful sign. I'm not quite so sure I like the ice on the camera, but whatever. I also don't like this engine here. Had a weird spattering pattern that looked wrong. I don't know anything, but I know the one that looks different, and ones that look different are bad when you're looking for reliability. Yeah. So the Falcon 9 will always have a future. By the way, never the whole promise that it was going to be gazillions of times cheaper never panned out with the Falcon 9. Yeah, it's somewhat cheaper at best, but the economy doesn't really come from the reuse. It comes from standardizing components, fuel, that sort of thing. How much mass can you remove from the moon before it changes its orbit? It's a non-issue. It's an absolute non-issue. The moon is very big and very heavy. Yeah. Yeah. You're never going to take enough off the moon to change anything. It looks like we're mostly full, and we are down to almost 15 minutes. 15 minutes till, yeah. We're going to get another beautiful shot of the first one, or the second one blown up. So this one, to me, looks like, yeah, that's sputtering there. This is, yeah, they claimed, is that the first one? Or is this a render? No, this is the one that blows out. Okay, yeah. All that sputtering. This doesn't look right. Yeah, curiously cut off before it blew up. Can we have a poll? Okay, I can try and do a poll. How do I do a poll? Engage with your audience. Start a poll. There we go. Right. What? How long before wreckage in ocean? There we go. So, right. The options will be, yeah, 1 minute, 10 minutes. Right. The irony is it's guaranteed wreckage in the ocean by an hour. 30 minutes or 1 hour. How long before $1 billion wreckage? Start poll. Okay. By the way, if it blows up on the pad, this is basically the end of SpaceX. It will destroy all of the ground facilities, and yeah, that's sort of almost unrecoverable from. A stupid poll, yes. Well, and most people say it's going to last 10 minutes, that's basically staging. So, yeah. And they've got their spacesuits, of course, which not been made by SpaceX, but that's another thing that NASA just don't really have yet. They don't have the spacesuits for going around on the moon. And we are 80% full on almost everything. Incidentally, you see these. There is a very real chance that what happened with the last one is when you started rocking this thing around, you messed with the autogenous pressurization. One of the early failures they had is this pipe that goes through the middle gets crushed. All of this stuff is like really pretty thin stainless steel. and the forces of the gas pressure here that will crush these things. They're like Coke cans. So you mess with any of this, and yeah, that's a problem. And okay, so most people think we're going to be 10 minutes, and then it's the end. Okay, let's end the poll there. What do you consider? Would you consider like a VTuber? I don't. So Scott Manley, he's he knows his stuff, but he also gives way too much credibility to vaporware. Like, I've seen, his take on, I think it was the Gateway Station or something, and it's like, come on, this is just complete crazy. And likewise, there is not quite the I think he needs to be a lot more critical. The thing is, it's so much. If you want to just make money off this sort of thing, it's easy. You have to be the Musk fanboy. Although the tide is turning on that one in that, Tesla's had a bit of a turnaround. SpaceX not doing so well, and becoming a professional. I've got lots of research stuff that I've got to finish up. Right. Before I die, that's on my bucket list. I've got to finish up some research before I die, and yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think within 20 minutes we will have a good idea as to. I mean, this can literally be the end of SpaceX if this thing just sort of blows up on the pad, because you destroyed the launch tower. They're out of money. They've spent $3 billion of government money already. Oh, and look at the beautiful computer-generated renders where everything works perfectly all the time. So whoever said grab a beer, you're quite right. I'm just going to grab a beer. I will be back in a few seconds. And yay, I am back. Has it blown up yet? Has it blown up yet? I can't see. No, it's all just sort of sat there. 3,000 tons of blowy up stuff on the pad. Yeah, no, I'm actually doing a video on Smarter Everyday's video. He's basically right that this whole, from an engineering standpoint, Starship's dead on arrival. It's just way too complicated. The idea that with the Apollo, you just needed one heavy lift rocket every time you went to the moon. Here, you need at least 10. 10 is your sort of minimum. Government Accountability Office pegs it more like, high teens, which for a rocket system that it doesn't exist yet. I mean, it's like no one even knows if it can what sort of capacity it can take to orbit. We are down to 6.5 minutes. Yeah. And it is starting to get busy. It's starting to get busy. And actually, no, we're getting broken clouds. We might get to see a new cloud in the sky here. By the way, you shouldn't know that this thing is right on the edge of a nature preserve. It's you see the sort of line here. I think this is literally where the nature preserve starts. if almost anyone else had built a 3,000-ton industrial complex on the edge of a nature reserve, people might have been saying that's not so eco-friendly. And on top of that, I don't know whether you saw this, that Musk's charity apparently he gave $7 billion to charity or something to avoid paying tax on it. Apart from it wasn't really a charity, it was his charity. And his charity's website is basically a sort of almost slush fund that spends money on things that he likes that sort of benefit him. So yeah, he might be getting some huge tax fine over that. But you got to give it to him. I mean, yeah, like I was saying, it's impossible to spend $3 billion and not have something to show for it. That's an awful lot of venting on the top side. So the other thing that they're most likely to run a cropper with is the last launch that they had. Snow. It's snow in Florida. The last launch that they had, they lost a load of heat tiles. So that even if this thing had made it into orbit, it would have never have survived re-entry. And unless they've sorted their heat tile problem, yeah, I mean, they're still sort of floundering at the first hurdle here. Is it impossible to make this thing work? No. But, it's like, is it impossible to make Hyperloop? Well, no, it's not impossible. It's just that, what Musk did in terms of actually building the Hyperloop was nothing. In fact, I'm almost tempted. No, we got 4 minutes. We'll stick with the feed. But at some point, I want to show you the Elon Musk test tunnel. The rapid prototyping test tunnel, and how that's derelict as well now. So of the various projects, I want to go back to America this year. And the 3 things that I want to hit is, number 1, I want to go back and see if what's left of Elon Musk's Hyperloop. And if possible, get me a souvenir of like a little piece of one of the concrete barriers that it was all put on. Just so I have some piece of memorabilia of this great failure. Number 2 is I want to go back to visit the Virgin Hyperloop thing. And also the Elon Musk test tunnel. Stop babbling. I'm sorry. It's keep you on the whole channel. Light to the side. Thank you, mistress. Three minutes. 1.5 million people watching. None of them on Twitter. So, I mean, for me, I wish them luck. I really do. But the thing is that they've scaled back their goals so much that they might be able to achieve them, but yeah. So, best case scenario, oh my God, I mean, it really is at this point, their best case scenario is not blowing up. 2 minutes. They're going to launch 5 of these per year, by the way, which is not far off the cadence that they were launching the Apollos to the moon. The Apollos to the moon, they were launching 2, 3 per year, that sort of thing. Apparently there's a Gamergate sequel. No, I'm past computer games. Notice me, something about degrees. I'm sorry I missed that. 1 minute 46 seconds. And we have the teenagers of SpaceX. Yeah, boys. Yeah. You've blown $2 billion of government money. Let's hear you cheer. No problem, Oscar. Thanks for the super chat. Explosion in 4 minutes, says Dan. Final countdown. Less than a minute. Well, not quite. 80 seconds. 80 seconds. Thank you. CC. Kaboom. TNT. Yeah, this is a far hydrogen oxygen is a far better explosive than TNT. It's like 5 times better. Ah, 40 seconds. Come on, baby. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. Hit me, baby. Hit me. Do it. 1 minute. Thank you, Richard. 10 minutes. Actually, it suddenly occurs to me that, yeah, I should have ordered pizza to see which lasts longer. The Starship mission or eating a pizza. Oh, 10 seconds. Here we go. Come on, baby. 4, 3. He's starting his water up. 1 second. He's going for it. He's going for it. And it's clearing the pad. Okay, that's good. It's good. That's SpaceX isn't dead yet, and it looks like they got good burn. Looks like they got all their engines up. That's good. And this looks much more stable. And their camera's wigged out. Their tracking camera died. Okay, and they've got some external pictures. This is more brave than I thought. I mean, last time they didn't have any of these feeds because presumably they were worried that, no, this looks good. The oxygen's slightly lower than the methane. That's not right. Now, people always say, maybe it's the gauges, but I don't know. Okay, well, this looks fine. It's stable. Good job, boys. Good job. Nice, steady ascent. And how many heat tiles are missing? It looks... There's maybe 1 here. But other than that, no, there's 1 here, maybe 1 here. But it looks... 1 here, maybe. This is your water plume, right? So as you go up into the atmosphere, your exhaust gases are carbon dioxide. That pitches over steeply. The exhaust gases are carbon dioxide and water. So once you get up into a certain level of the atmosphere, you don't have the critical nucleation density, and the water disperses before it can condense out. So that's why the water trail ends there. Okay. And our oxygen's still a little low, but oxygen's a little low on both of these guys. Okay, so it's a little after 2 minutes should be the hot staging. So it looks good so far. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm. This is essentially government money being spent. So if it was Musk's money, then yeah, whatever. But it's not really. It's yeah. This looks. There's arguably there's maybe some tiles missing, but this looks actually pretty decent. This is, I mean, compared to the previous efforts. Okay, do we get any tiles fall off? Okay, no, this is fine. Okay, and there's no erratic behavior. Okay, no, good job, boys. Good job. Yeah. Not quite sure why it's spinning. That doesn't seem right. Oh, is it to get a better view of the Earth? Why does it need to spin? But clearly, okay, now this was controlled, right? There's no conceivable reason why you would spin. Oh no, maybe it's the heat shield thing. Maybe it's to the spin was to reduce the strain on the heat shield. That doesn't look right. That doesn't look right at all. Or is this the booster? This is the booster. Okay. No, the boosters. Have they lost all the engines on the booster? It's not got any engines lit up. This doesn't look right. Okay, so the guy with the heat shield, he's doing well. He looks like he's 3 engines up. And he's more or less the same. The oxygen's a little low. That was the same as... Yeah, ideally you need to burn your oxygen and your methane at the same rate. 4 minutes in. And okay, no, taking a look, I think they've lost the booster. Booster's got no oxygen left in it. And no how accurate these gauges are. But if you take a look at their oxygen here, they've got no oxygen left. So that bit where I said this doesn't look right, it's like they just emptied the entire booster of oxygen. This. Okay. Well, I wasn't paying too much attention to the graphics with the engines lit up, so I might have missed something there. Booster has some changes in attitude. So bear in mind these things have to burn to empty at some point, but yeah. Well, yeah, no, they're doing well so far. Okay. So those are the cold gas thrusters working at the moment. And he's got his sort of, air brake things sort of twisting, which, giving you some control on where you're actually heading to. 20 kilometers, 19, 7, 16, 15, 14, 13. This seems 13. He's going a kilometer per second. That's 3 times the speed of sound. He's doing a kilometer per second. That's 3 times the speed of sound. 4, 3, 2. This can't. His altitude is it? Okay, no. Oh no, his engine's failed, and boom, it's gone. Okay, so that looked like it lit up 1 engine out of presumably like 5 that it was meant to light up. It looks like they were out of oxygen. It looks like they had nothing left in it. So, yeah, boom. Okay, so wreckage in the Gulf of Mexico by 7 minutes. If you said that, you were right. It looked like they lost all of the oxygen before they actually got around to landing. Meanwhile, the guy who is, so, yeah, we're with $3 billion and, yeah, how close to a reusable system? I'm impressed they've actually got feed still from the guy in space. This is, yeah, you're getting data. Oh, so that's what a rocket crashing into the ocean at 3 times the speed of sound looks like. Yeah, we lost all the satellite links. No, it's still going. So this can't be being done through Starlink because, yeah, Starlink's low Earth orbit. So, and as for their burn, what are we up to? Oh, God, kilometers per hour. Okay, so what the hell's orbital velocity in kilometers per hour? Oh, here we go. Something happens. That's the engine cutoff, I guess. Orientation is weird. Why is the heat shield not pointing towards Earth? Again, they're low on the oxygen. I'm not so sure about this. Oh, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. These bits here where it's sort of spraying gas out the side, it's kind of like they're leaking. They've not managed to shut off their engines properly. It looks like you're leaking gas there, boys. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, no, your spacecraft shouldn't be venting gas into space. I can tell you that. This looks so wrong. This here, you've got a leak. This is a leak. This part here. Yeah, they're leaking. This is not going to do anything. And that's why it's rotating. I think they're off course. What the hell's the attitude of this thing, right? So this is the belly of the spacecraft over here. That's where the Earth is. I guess you could do that, but this is a leak. This is what leaks in space look like. We might be able to tell. It looks like, if I'm guessing, they're leaking the methane, right? They were a little low on the oxygen. Now it looks more like parity. Yeah, right. So this is what they had with the Apollo 13. Is that when they're leaking to space, as you vent your gas, you get little particles that they hang with you in orbit. Yeah, this is just pissing out fuel. No. Yeah, it's a spicy leak. They're trying to oxygenate orbit. Okay, no, you have to basically tell from this gauge down here which one they're leaking. Now, it may be that it's not a hugely significant leak in terms of if your entire flight is an hour long. No. What the hell? So the only way you can get valves to act like this, is usually if they're frozen. Right? So it's a recurring problem with dealing with cryogenic gases here on Earth, is Earth has quite a lot of water on it, and it's in the atmosphere. You get cryogenic liquids, and water freezes out onto the cold stuff, and that can lock your valves open, closed, whatever. Oh, look, little bits flying off the spaceship. It's ice. This is sort of acceptable. This is leaking, and it's okay. Are we just doing that because they've lost the signal, or? Yeah, so with leak rates like this, now this is another reason why I think failure was expected. Do you see Elon Musk there anywhere at all? Sort of gloating about the success of this brilliant success of, what was it? One booster crashing into the sea at about faster than the speed of sound. So prior to, at about 17 kilometers, it was going down at about 1 kilometer per second. That's 3 times the speed of sound. Just so you know, the V2 rocket in World War II, they used to come in supersonic. They were little suborbital things, but when they came back down, those were traveling like 2-3 times the speed of sound. That's comparable to the speed that the arse end of Starship was coming down at. So I'm tempted. Let's see what actually they're saying. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear this. Let's turn the volume on here. You are kidding me. They have elevator music. They have elevator music. They have elevator music playing. Hey, But bizarrely, they didn't actually switch. Part of me is a little skeptical as to whether Musk actually ever watches some of my videos in the I make a point about how they cheer when everything blows up, and then all of a sudden on the next one these things are cut out of the video. There was another one like this. Oh, is this is inside Starship? Yeah, okay. So it is. Oh, is this the opening the door demo? Yeah, look at this guy. It's like, So if I had to guess, with leaks like that, if they try and light up the engines, there's a very good chance the whole thing just blows up. Can they open a door in space? Yeah, this is the most amateurish. Look, I've worked at lots of facilities that do synchrotrons, neutrons. They often have high vacuum chambers. Having doors that open and close on this sort of thing is totally pedestrian. There is nothing special about it. This was okay. Let's see. Let's see if we're still in space elevator music. Yeah. Your taxpayer dollars at work. And yeah, we don't have any signal. So this is presumably because it's over the middle of the Atlantic. Somewhere between, Florida and South Africa. Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, the first stage crashed into the ocean at about 2 times the speed of sound. It did try to relight its engines. There you go. Okay, they've, as you can see, the inside of the spaceship is perfectly designed for humans. I mean, this is it. You see these little like screw thread hydraulic things. That's all that's going to open the door. This is literally like showing a demo of an automated garage opening or garage, and oh wow, this is their. Yeah, wow. Okay, great. You've got a garage door in space. That's so impressive. Is that actually a hole in the spacecraft? This thing here? Not sure. Even at that, it's opening very slowly. Is this opening or is this just... Oh, no, the spacecraft's rotating. The spacecraft is rotating. I don't think the spacecraft should be rotating. I think they've lost. So, one of the problems with an uncontrolled leak, they had this in the Apollo 13, is it starts to move your rocket off course. And if you don't have reaction control thrusters, and I don't think this thing has reaction control thrusters, that means that you're helplessly tumbling through space. Might be one of the reasons why we don't have an outside view. What the hell's this? Okay. Congratulations, you've opened a carriage door in space. With literally something that could be used as the electronic, as the mechanisms for a carriage door. Intermittently. Voice gate is not adjusting correctly. Keeps cutting off for me. Voice gate? Okay, sorry about that. Sound looks okay on this end, but why do you have to be so negative about achievements? What achievements? Is this going to be a holographic tennis court? Oh no, totally. They're going to be just like Elon promised in 2016. They're going to have violin concertos with giant bay windows in space. Yeah, there's going to be a woman in a floaty dress playing the violin. with the Earth in the background. It's totally going to happen. And they're going to be flying Starship like rockets, sorry, like airplanes. And it's still leaking. It is still leaking. And it looks, if I'm going off from memory here, but it looks like it's the oxygen that's leaking. That's wrong. That is so wrong. That is so cursed. Or is it possible, right? Okay. No. It was leaking It was leaking from the start. I was about to say it's conceivable that they're doing some sort of ullage thing here, and they're doing that to generate a little bit of thrust to settle the liquid in the tanks. But no, it was from the second they shut off the engines they had this problem. Yay! Someone else works at the Academy of Sciences. Okay, Carol, if you're ever in the area, I'm not hard to find. So we're approaching the point when I think they should be doing their fuel transfer demo. But as you can see, when did they say the fuel transfer demo was going to be? Payload bay doors opening. Propellant transfer demo is at 24 minutes. And what are we at? Oh, we're 4 minutes away from the propellant transfer thing. But as you could see from the earlier shot where they were opening the pod bay doors, the inside of this thing is just a giant empty shell. The propellant transfer is, this is doomed. It's tumbling. It is tumbling. Okay, it's out of control. I was sort of thinking this is, a roll maneuver. This isn't a roll maneuver anymore. The leakage of the gas is making it tumble helplessly through space, and you can even see the moments of inertia. Right, so when you tumble in space, you tumble on whatever angular momentum things, and yeah, so this is like doing one of these weird tumbles through space. So that's not going to work out well for the fuel transfer. It's not tumbling, it's spin stabilized. Oh yeah, this right. So it turns out when they sent the Apollo guys to the moon, they did actually do something like this. When they were going to the moon, it's the shape of the bit that they sent to the moon is not that far off this. It was a long stick, basically, your command module and your lunar module. And they wanted the people to go to sleep because, it's going to take a day or two to get to the moon. So you need to get some sleep at some point. But if you have people going to sleep, then you can't talk. You need the spacecraft to stay in the same orientation. And very small drifts would mean that over hours it would roll off course. And you could get gimbal lock, you could lose signal, all that sort of thing. So what they did was they actually got it rotating. Because if you get the spacecraft to rotate, then it stays much more stable. They had a name for it. It's sort of a pig roast or spit roast or something. Yeah, beer in Prague. I am on the Kozel. It's what was available. So we are about to do the fuel. They can't do the fuel the fuel transfer demo will require them to actually have control over the spacecraft, which they don't have at the moment. So I don't think the fuel transfer demo can happen. It's not possible. No. So opening the garage doors and closing the garage doors, this is relatively simple. Propellant transfer demo. If it's me doing this, but let me come over to my drawing. If it's me doing right, so if this is the cross section of your spacecraft, and whatever, you got one tank of fuel here and one tank of fuel here, you want to transfer it from one to the other. What I would do is I would spin the craft on this axis such that your liquids pool in that half of the tank and that half of the tank, and then you just have a tube that runs between them and you just drive it from one to the other using gas pressure. But in order to do this, you actually need to be able to control what the spacecraft is doing. If the spacecraft is tumbling through space, you can't do it. So I think they're yeah. Thunderfoot be like, what achievements? And damn straight. I mean, this is yeah. How much closer is this to a functioning system than it was last time? They lost the booster, so they didn't have a controlled landing on the booster. They, you know, if you're going to have a reusable system, they didn't blow it up on the separation. So credit there. I'm not sure they had enough fuel. Yeah, it looked like they leaked oxygen, which is, again, I mean, it's a problem. If you've got 30 engines, then there's 30 places that something can leak from. So, yeah, that's a problem. It looks like they've had exactly the same problem here. Yeah, they should do a collaboration with Spin Launch. Damn straight they should. Spin Launch Starship version. Yeah, 7,000 viewers. Here's to you, 7,000. No, we are the 3,000 plus. This is a very good point, right? If they've lost control of it, can they deorbit it? I'm not so sure they can. They have the flight termination system, assuming it works. But that still means that... someone's got a question about NASA's reaction to this. NASA's reaction to this performance, considering 2 years now, Artemis is supposed to be happening. Yeah, this is not going to happen. This is... I mean, could you make this work? Conceivably, yes. Is this... Yeah, if you were designing it from scratch... I mean, the problem is that you're... I will bet dollars to donuts that the core design... architecture was locked in when Musk said, I just want to launch the biggest rocket possible. Okay, that's great. He's still not made it to orbit. So, we have a view from the inside and the spaceship is tumbling faster now. You can see it tumbling from the light moving around in the inside of it. So if your spaceship is tumbling helplessly through space, how do you relight the engines? Yeah. When are they meant to relight the engines? So the fuel transfer demo should have basically happened by now. Fuel transfer demo. Propellant. Transfer demo was at 24 minutes. They're closing the door at 30. Raptor relight is at 40 minutes, which is 12 minutes away. Oh, yeah, you see it's tumbling. Yeah, this is all sorts of messed up. Thank you, Rushik. Cheers. So yeah, they've got intermittent data, which is why every now and again this updates and it's in a random orientation. It looks like they're leaking oxygen, and it's spinning faster and faster. Yeah, this is the way it goes. The more propellant you leak, the more speed you pick up, and holy crap, this thing is rotating now. It's probably once every 30 seconds. You know, you get a rough idea from when you see the lights trouble around on the inside. You know, you just have to extrapolate. So how long for a full rotation here? And that might also be why it keeps losing signal. Right, okay. So we lost signal at 2850. I need a pen. There we go. Okay, signal back. 28. Yeah, you see how quickly this thing's spinning now? Holy crap. You're down to... Okay, you see it. As you see the light go across, it's spinning at this speed, which is a full rotation about every 6 seconds, I think. Yeah. I don't think there's anything you can do with this. I'm not sure Starship can derotate itself. Once you've picked up the rotations, how do you get them out again? Right? With Apollo, you had reaction control thrusters that you could, you put thrust in one way, you actually rotate the spaceship one way, you put it in the other, you rotate it the other way. Starship's only got the gimbal thrusters at the rear of the machine. Yeah, time to call out the time to call the service center. Yeah, so... Oh, that was wrong. That was wrong. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's leaking the oxygen. And you see it rotating. You see it rotating on the side of the Earth. So how long does that take, the full rotation? Okay, we're in about 30 seconds here. 30 or 40 seconds. But spoiler, this thing has to be a tanker in space for months before relighting the Raptor engines to go to the moon. And this is a really weird time. Okay, this is wrong. This, again, is wrong. We are at 30 minutes in. What is happening that is knocking stuff off the spacecraft at this point? Right? You need something happening. It needs to be... The spacecraft needs to be shaken. When it's sat in zero gravity... yeah, okay, you do get some evaporation from gases which can, knock flecks off, but they don't all come off at once. Usually if something's coming off at once, it's something's happened. It's Tesla build quality, yes. So I want to see them relight. I'm not even so sure they're going to try and relight it. There might come this point where... Although, hang on, if you don't relight it, you just spread the debris over. Right, okay, so this is where you time it, right? So when this goes vertical, we start counting. Now, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so it's 15-ish seconds for a 90-degree turn. So that's a minute for a whole spin. On the bright side, sitting on the merry-go-round does give you a good view. Can we see any more tiles lost? Okay. This is a maybe. This looks actually in pretty good shape. Oh my god, there are so many leaks on this thing. Like, it's not just there's one leak here. There are 3 or 4 leaks on this thing. Yeah, the Apollo 13 reimagined by Elon Musk. Felon Musk. Felon Musk. Just so not many people know this, but Elon Musk's middle initial is R. So his technical monogrammed is ERM or is... Maybe I ought to start calling him in later videos. Rapid, unscheduled disco event. Right, so actually we are. We are. It is the time to drink one beer, is the time that it takes Elon Musk to turn $1 billion into wreckage across 50% of the Earth's surface. I must be entering the Starlink debris field. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty certain now this is in the liquid oxygen. You know, just I'm doing it from memory, but I'll bet dollars to donuts it's a leak in the oxygen. Let's see if we can do a little more. This seems to be picking up rates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. No, it's still about 15 seconds for a quarter return. It's got a rotation rate of about once per minute. But, spoiler alert, you've only got a heat shield on half of your spacecraft. So if you're going to try an orbital interface with a rotating spacecraft, 50% of your re-entry energy is going to go into the half of the spacecraft without a heat shield. Actually, now I think about it, when they showed an interior view of the spacecraft, there was an interior span. Maybe that's what they've got, right? Because this whole thing about opening and closing the door, I had assumed that this was in part that you had to close the door to repressurize it, and you needed it pressurized to take re-entry. I'm pretty certain they're not. If they try and relight this, they're probably going to try and relight it because it'll probably blow up anyway. If they don't, they probably have to do the flight termination system. Yeah. Because otherwise, this... I wonder if it naturally burns up. Oh, that's different. That's different. Are they picking up heating? I think they're picking up heating from the atmosphere. Altitude 191 kilometers. No, it's a bit high for picking up atmosphere. So the thing is, once you start brushing the atmosphere, because your spacecraft is traveling 8 kilometers per second, that sort of thing, and your typical gas molecule only travels about 0.3 kilometers per second, you basically ionize the gas. And so when you start seeing the gas change from a nice white misty thing here, which is basically gas being vented into space, to something that a little more glowy and plasma. There was a landmass! That was Africa! I think that was Africa that we saw underneath us. It's still speeding up. I can believe it. If they've got an uncontrolled leak on it, you expect the rates to just increase and increase. And I don't think that they can de-spin the rocket by relighting the engines. SpaceX said the propellant transfer was complete. What did I miss? If they did a propellant transfer, it was a weird one. Could they be spinning it on purpose? Okay, maybe. Like I was saying, if I was doing the propellant transfer, you spin the rocket to sort of get the fuel to go to the outside, and then you squirt it from one to the other. Let's see what they've got to say for themselves.
Starbase Texas at 8:25 a.m. Central Time. Our main objective today was to get through all of our Ascent burns and collect as much data as possible, including a potential Starship entry. And we just came out of a coast phase and were treated to a number of HD views thanks to Starlink, including the PEZ door open-close test. So that was one of our test objectives today that we met. So that's...
Oh, Jesus. They opened the garage doors, and therefore they're so impressed.
Just to see booster lifting a Starship to Ascent, ship completing its ascent. Just a wonderful day. Kind of to recap the objectives a little bit. Booster completed its ascent, ignited its 33 Raptor engines. We
Okay, this seems to be claiming victory over the little things.
The landing burn and then had a hard splashdown in the Gulf.
Hard splashdown, yes, at about 2 times the speed of sound.
Hot staging. We had a good 6-engine burn of the Raptor vacuum engines and sea level engines. And then we've commanded a number of demonstrations, including the Starlink satellite deploy demo, so the payload door, as well as a prop transfer demonstration. We do still need to do some data review on those. So as we get...
I think that means that, that was...
We are coming up on our next major milestones, which is an in-space relight of our Raptor engine for the first time, followed by re-entry and then landing in the Indian Ocean.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We should be just about 40 seconds away, 40 or 50 seconds away, if we do this relight demo. Do want to stress this is not a deorbit burn. In fact, it's actually going to function a little bit opposite of a deorbit burn. We're going to be raising our perigee with this burn for the lowest point of our orbit. This is just to demonstrate that we can relight a Raptor engine on ship while it's gone through a coast, while it's in outer space, while it's in microgravity, all of the...
Yeah, so when your success criteria is we didn't blow up on the pad, we didn't blow up when we separated, we collided the booster, the most expensive part of the rocket, into the ocean at 1 kilometer per second. Yeah. And you'll notice that, what was their other thing? They spent a lot of time on opening the pod bay doors, but didn't actually make a lot of hay out of the propellant transfer. The propellant transfer, like I was saying, they probably just have 2 tanks and they're just pumping it from one to the other. This is not that impressive.
We can really, we're in a trajectory that's really not super susceptible to delta V changes in velocity. If we were to do a burn, we've got a pretty concise footprint in the Indian Ocean that we're going to be targeting for splashdown today.
Targeting the Indian Ocean. Yeah, it's not a small target to hit.
Again, we'll confirm all of this through our post-flight data review, but it did sound like we did pass through that burn. So now that's going to start setting us up for re-entry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So coming up next around T plus 49 minutes is Starship re-entry. Now, this is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communications with spacecraft because they're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere at or around orbital velocity, about 8 kilometers per second or roughly 5 miles.
Oops. No, what have I done? What have I done? Oh, sorry. I was messing with camera controls. No, take me back to the video.
We're basically left with a brief communications blackout. Now, we might get some telemetry back through a connection to the tracking and data relay satellite system, also known as TDRS. But if the plasma doesn't entirely block it, that connection will be at a very slow data rate and definitely too slow for any video.
But that's why...
Yeah, okay. So, they sort of claim that they'd done a burn, but no real evidence of it. The spacecraft is pitching all the way over. Here we go. Something interesting.
There's some of those great views from Starlink.
Right, altitude is 130 kilometers. You get orbital interface at about 100.
And so we're hoping that the Starlink on board will...
But you see the spin. That spin's not good.
...field by maintaining a continuous communication lock with the satellites on orbit through the wake that Starship leaves.
Curiously, something that they haven't noted on the Starlink, the SpaceX feed.
And though we do have these great visuals now, don't be surprised if we manage to get some signal hiccups through. We're still learning about what that wake will actually look like in practice and whether we're able to get that live continuous.
Dude, the Starship is spinning through space. How are you? You're meant to be pointing the heat shield towards the Earth, but we're coming down. Okay, 126 kilometers, 125. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, 1 kilometer every 4 seconds. We're going down at roughly the speed of sound. Right, that's our rate of descent towards the Earth.
Re-entry is going to be a really critical phase of.
Okay, we're picking up signs. It's still leaking. It's still leaking. Right, 120. So, yeah, you'll start seeing, you're picking up pinkish hues on this as you hit the
Starship
reorbit.
program to make each flight more reliable, more successful.
Acquisition single, Mauritius.
Hey, look, we're pointing the heat shield towards space. That's not going to work, guys.
Flying through the Earth's atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, meaning more than 5, or at this point, will be more than 5
you're wasting
times
your
the
time,
speed of
guys.
sound.
You're wasting your time. Moving that around's not going to help.
Now we're
right. Moving that around's not going to help.
You can see that the flaps there on the ship might be actuating.
Right, you see all the debris coming off this thing. It's still mostly sticking with the spacecraft. So yeah, we're not. There's not enough atmosphere yet to actually sort of whip it away from the spacecraft.
We've already validated Starship's ability to fly and land at subsonic speeds. You might recall those suborbital flights from a few years ago, and we can see the
stabilization. No, still spinning. Still spinning.
Control while traveling way faster than we did before is going to be critical to eventually bringing starships back from space for rapid.
No, we're pointing our heat shield up into space, and we are close to the re-entry interface.
Which, like we said before, we're expecting that re-entry to occur around T plus 49 minutes. So we're getting pretty close here.
And what you're seeing here, it looks like the vehicle is sort of moving back and forth. Part of what you're also seeing is one of the cameras, this onboard view that we have.
So what they're trying to do is the sort of skydiver thing. They're desperately trying to stop the thing from rotating, because if you can't stop it from rotating... Oh, there you go, plasma! 100 kilometers. We are at orbital interface, and we are upside down? Yeah, okay. And is there stabilization from this? There might be. No, still spinning. No, they're screwed. Sorry, boys. Yeah. They're desperately trying to use the, yeah. Right? You're meant to point the heat shield towards the Earth.
This before. This is the biggest flying object ever in space.
Absolutely, Kate. And it's important to note.
And that's the engines. That's the engines burning up. Right. Well, I've got to give it to them. And yeah, there's a lot of plasma, and yeah, it's
The fact that we have views through entry, this is incredible.
Yeah. Again, this is the.
Yeah, I'll give it to them. Getting any signal back, you can do it, but yeah.
Here in Hawthorne.
The heat shield tiles doing their work. We talked about it earlier.
Okay.
Up to 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. There's ceramic tiles. Oh, here we go. Boom. Yeah, spinning. At least I assume that's what's going on. Maybe not. No? Could they pull this off? Nah, it still looks like it's rotating to me. That still looks like it's rotating to me. Yeah. And what the hell's this? That loss of... It's doing better than I expected. Hang on, our nose. What our attitude is this right? It can't be nose down. Yeah. Well, they're still getting the attitude of the spacecraft, but is this just... 74 kilometers. They're doing much better than I expected. Much better. No. When the spacecraft sort of whizzes around like this is not what it's meant to do. And like I was saying, probably maybe the most interesting thing here is the lack of Elon Musk. Yeah, you see this thing rocking backwards and forwards. I'll tell you what it might be. It might be a telemetry problem. They might be having trouble getting the signal back, and so it's just reporting whatever the last numbers was. They lost it? Probably.
Entering Earth's atmosphere. This is super exciting because it's the furthest and fastest that Starship has ever flown.
It's just absolutely incredible. Major test milestone, something we...
Nah, well, actually, it's like this is the first hurdle. This is the first hurdle of like 60.
Here, so what's doing all the work on Starship right now? There are 18,000 hexagons.
Yeah. The ceramic tiles. And so it's basically all that energy that you put into the rocket. Okay, let's keep attention on this thing, which isn't moving now. Is that moving? No. It's dead. That was always kind of the expectation.
It doesn't carry all that thermal load.
It did much better than I expected. I expected this thing to, although the bit where you are tumbling through space 10 minutes before re-entry, bear in mind, if this had happened with the shuttle, mind you, it didn't help that the shuttle was made out of aluminium, so the shuttle melted really quick if things went wrong.
Ultimately, the measure of success here, which I think today has been a huge success given where we've gone and how much further we've gotten with both the booster and.
The booster that is wreckage in the Gulf of Mexico, having hit it at over the speed of sound.
A high data rate, and usually video comes after you get your telemetry. So hopefully we were able to get some wonderful data throughout the entry period, which is normally something we have to wait for.
Yeah, okay, we're locked in. Wow! Starship has stopped falling at 65 kilometers. Okay, I'll have to go back and check when they actually lost the telemetry on that. But, yeah, so one of them blew up. One of them, they survived hot staging, and the booster fell back to Earth, which is not exactly a new thing. Most things that are thrown up in the air do actually come back down, and it failed to relight its engines and hit the ground at about 1-2 times the speed of sound. The top bit span through space for a bit and then burned up on re-entry. Lasted 52 minutes. $1 billion in 52 minutes. That's not bad. Yeah. So, how much closer are they to actually getting this thing to work? None. They didn't blow up the booster, so they sort of cracked that one, but they didn't have enough fuel in it, or it leaked. All of their engines, it looks like, when they try and shut them down, they keep pumping out fuel, or they don't shut off properly. And, yeah, leaking anything into space is the kiss of death, because you will just start to spin, pick up rates, and this thing has to, in order to get back to the moon, update, is it burnt up?
Waiting to see if we're going to get data back from the ship. We might be in a bit of a blackout period right now, so still waiting to hear the status on it. But yeah, we got to the actual entry portion of today. We started into peak heating.
Dude, you were guaranteed to make re-entry. You were guaranteed. It wasn't in orbit.
Reusable. The closest parallel has been the space shuttle. When we're comparing Starship to like when we bring a Falcon 9 booster back, we're talking about 20 times the energy given the velocity that we're moving at, and all of that energy just gets converted into heat, and then we need to use those tiles to...
Yes, those tiles, which right, so there is the possibility, right? So once you start hitting the atmosphere, you do start getting some aerodynamic control. And so when the shuttle did this, it used to do these weird sort of flippy maneuvers that were designed to sort of spread the heat out. But, you know, if you're tumbling, forget about it. I mean, it's like the only thing that you have on the Starship that can actually take that sort of heat is the tiles. And they were pointing in the wrong direction. So, yeah. Okay. So that was interesting. That's, you know, if I'm being realistic, if you put this on the sort of same trajectory as Apollo, with Apollo, every single one of the Saturn V's launched flawlessly and did what it was meant to do. Here we have gotten... We've not even gotten to where any rocket... Usually you start with a functioning system and you modify it to do more ambitious things. Here, it's just not working. Super chat. Good analysis, Thunderfoot. Love to see the Starship stream. Glad you liked it. And here is the artistic's rendition where the Starship is re-entering without tumbling. So it does, yeah, artist impression of what it's going to look like. You got anything interesting for us?
Starship splashes down in the ocean. Again, we're not doing a landing burn on this flight.
No, you're not.
And we're not expecting Starship to survive the impact. We're not going to be recovering any of the hardware. For now, though, we are just still waiting to see if we're going to get some signal back. We're currently at a loss of signal with Starship. Don't know for sure what its status is, and so we're just continuing to listen in. But it was pretty incredible seeing the flaps really do their thing to...
Yeah. Yes. The flaps which can't actually despin the spaceship. Well, I mean, technically you can get a little bit out of it, and I think that's what they were desperately trying to do. There was a lot of flap activity, which is, you know, as you're spinning, as you want to try and stick a flap out to try and stop you spinning, and then fold the other one up in to try and stop it from rotating, but obviously didn't work so well.
Really interesting point too, that for on shuttle, you are gliding in, going back to a runway. On Starship, because we're landing vertically, we are basically coming down, and then we've seen this during the suborbital campaign. We're not going to see it today, but during the suborbital campaign.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, the suborbital campaign that, resulted in 3... what was it? They finally managed to get one down that didn't blow up. Glad you liked the stream, Gausai. Yeah, they managed to get one down that didn't blow up, and this is meant to be rapidly reusable. No, I mean, this is you add a 0 to the budget. And 5 years, maybe. But, you know, the thing is, there is no market for it. It's literally like hiring a truck to do your weekly shopping. Yes, it's more efficient, but there is no mass market for launching thousands of tons to orbit. So... this is the reason why no one's ever done it before. Also having a beer. Good job on ya. And he's to debris fields on both sides of the planet. Cheers. So I think we're almost at the end. What does this say? Laugh my ass off. Phil went from "this will never work" to "there's no market for it." Well, no, it was always possible. I mean, it's a rocket. There's, you know, That was always the thing. It's making things rapidly reusable. There was never a large launch market. This has been true forever. The satellites cost more to make than they cost to launch. So even if you can make launching them cheaper, it doesn't really change much. The only reason SpaceX, they eventually had to start Starlink because there weren't that many satellites to launch. Anyway, I think we're into winding it up territory. So, are there any questions from chat? Actually, before we do that, I just want to take a quick listen in and see what they're going for.
With us, those were incredible views to see of that entry period where we saw the high.
Yeah, right. They were pretty views. I'll give them that. But yeah, there were pretty views of it spinning and burning up. And there were pretty views of it crashing into the ocean at, I remember watching it count down. Its altitude was in kilometers, and it was literally counting down a kilometer per second, which is a work in progress. Do you dye your hair? No. I'm not as beautiful and brown as I used to be. This is the horrible thing. When I started YouTube, I did have totally non-grey hair. Now, 20 years later, 20 years sucks. Enjoy being young, I guess where I'm going. Saturn V shuttle and SLS successful. Everything succeeded on their maiden flight apart from Starship, which is now on its third flight. And its success criterion is we took some nice video of it crashing. When did it become acceptable to accept trial and error when launching ballistic missiles? Well, there was a great quote from a guy who worked for NASA who says that, if NASA blew public money like this, they would shut us down in a heartbeat. Blowing $1 billion of public money is... You just think about how many hospitals or how much healthcare you can get for $1 billion. And that's basically just what you watched, is $1 billion firework. Musk said they're blowing like $2 billion a year on this thing. And so, they're basically $1 billion a launch, these things. And they didn't even get a good video of it hitting the ground on either of them. Yeah, they should have taken one of their drone ships out to where it was going to splash down. Yeah, and the biggest tell, no Elon Musk. They suspected that this was not going to be the great success. Anyway, I think at that we're almost going to wrap it up. All these geniuses recreating tech from the 1960s. Take one more last listen to their stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be so tough to stay focused with what an exciting day we've had today.
Yeah, to quote Monty Python, I'm not dead yet. We don't.
Yeah, but not dead yet, but circling the train for certain. Okay, guys, much appreciated. Many thanks for turning out. Congratulations on SpaceX for blowing $1 billion in less than an hour rather than in 10 minutes. And I will see you next time. Enjoy and ciao.